Hey guys, welcome to lesson 14 of how to build iPhone apps with no programming experience. And in this lesson, we are going to look at if statements. First, we're going to start a playground to try out the code before we go into the Xcode project. So I'm just going to save this playground on our desktop. Okay, so this is the first time we're going to be able to express some sort of logic or decision making in our code. So for example, let's say I have a variable a which is equal to 20, and let's say I want to print out a statement, but depending on what the value of a is. So this is a perfect time to use an if statement. Now an if statement follows this sort of syntax. You type if followed by the condition which you want to check. So in my case, let's say I want to print a statement if a is less than 10, then I want to do something. Now what I do is I use the curly brackets to specify some code to run if this condition is true. So I'm just going to print line hello. And you can see that this code doesn't do anything because it's going to check this condition. Right now it's false, so it's not going to execute that code. But let's say if I were to change a to 9, which is less than 10, now you can see that the code in there executes. There's a couple more things that you can do with an if statement. You can say if this condition is true, then do this code. Else, do something else. So what happens here now is it'll check this condition. If it's true, it's going to run this code. If it's false, it's going to run this code. But it's not going to do both. It's going to do one or the other depending if this condition is true or not. So right now it's 9, so it's going to print hello. But if I change this to something like 19, then it's going to run this code and print goodbye instead. Now I can take this even further and I can say, I can add another condition in the middle here. Else if a is greater than 10 and a is less than 15, then do this code. So in the middle here, I can put something like print line in between. And this operator acts as an AND. Both of these conditions have to be true. So what happens here is that first it's going to check this statement. If it's false, it's going to check this statement, else if. And then finally, if that isn't true as well, it's going to execute this one. So it reads kind of like English. If this is true, then do this. If it's not true, then is this true? If it's not, then finally do else. And you can have as many else ifs as you want, but it's going to check from top to bottom, and the first true condition that it meets, it's going to execute that code in there. Now, also, I used this operator, and this is an AND operator. Think of it as AND. Basically, if a is greater than 10 and a is less than 15, then this condition is true, and execute this code in here. But this AND is just expressed as that. I can also do OR. If I do OR, then it checks if this is true, or if this is true, then the whole condition is satisfied and it's going to execute this code. So with an OR, you'll only need one of these two conditions to be true for this whole branch to be executed. And you can chain the ORs and the ANDs together to express some interesting logic. Furthermore, you can do equals. So I can do something like if a equals 15, then do this. Now keep in mind that I'm not using that because a single equal sign is used for assignment. Like up here, I'm assigning 19 into the variable a. So if you're going to do comparisons, you want to do that. And lastly, if I don't want to have an else statement, I don't need it. I can go like that. So if a is less than 10, then print hello. If it's not, check, is a equal to 15? If it's not, then nothing happens. And then finally, there's also less than or equal to, or greater than or equal to. And there's also not equal to. So that's expressed by an exclamation mark and an equal sign. And you can see here that a is 19, which is not equal to 10, so this condition is true, and it executes this code. So if statements are pretty powerful, and we're going to be using them a lot in our code. Let's go into our Xcode project and implement an if statement to check which card is higher. So right here I have our Xcode project open, and we're going to implement the if statement inside the viewController.swift in the playRoundTapped method. So right now when we execute this code, it's going to randomly generate a number and assign the corresponding card to the UI image view, and then it's going to randomize a second number and do the same for the second image view. So down here below that, we want to determine the higher card. So all we have to do is basically write if first random number is greater than second random number, open a set of curly braces, and inside here, let's write a statement to do first card is larger. Okay, and we write an else, because if the first number is not greater, then it must be less than. So in the else branch of code, we write second card is larger. Now we haven't considered the case, what if they're tied? What if they're the same number? Right now, this code, if it's a tie, it's going to go into the else statement, because all it checks is if the first number is greater than the second number. Anything else goes into this else branch of code right here. What we want to do here is add another condition, else if first random number is equal to second random number, and that would indicate a tie. So with this if statement here, we're able to determine a winner based on the random numbers that have been rolled. In the next lesson, we're going to add some labels to the storyboard, and then we're going to fill in the code in these if branches to update the score label.